Hello there. This is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how are you doing? So, whenever I do polls, the subscribers of this channel, they often ask me for more content on African countries, because this is an ASMR channel which concentrates on maps and flags and geography. And most of my subscribers are either in North America or Europe, and a smattering from other places around the world, of course, like South America and Australia. But I do get a lot of requests for Africa, and I'm happy to oblige. It's an area that I'm probably less familiar with than South America, North America, Europe, and even Asia, probably. So, more than happy to do this video today. Thank you to you, my subscribers, for suggesting it. With the wind howling outside. So this is, which book is this we're looking at today? The Phillips School Atlas, 98th edition. It's relatively new because I was looking, and it, for example, has South Sudan, which is one of the newest countries in the world. And I believe I got it maybe a year or two ago. And when I looked at the section on Africa, it's got these two large maps here. One is a relief of land showing the mountainous areas. Secondly, it's more, I think, this is countries in Africa. Well, countries in Africa. This is more of a political map, I suppose we could call it that. Then there's a really interesting double-page spread with climate and biomes, which is really, really interesting. We'll take a look at that in a second. Population and wealth. Population change and wealth. Population density as well. Lagos and Cairo. Addis Ababa. And then lastly, a much more detailed North Africa and West Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa to the side, with Madagascar. So, lots to get through. Let's get started. Don't forget to click like on the video if you're enjoying it, and join me on Patreon for early access to these videos as well. Okay, so let's do a complete idiot's guide to Africa. Africa is a continent, much like Europe is a continent, Asia is a continent, North America, South America. There are debates over, there are lots of different theories of how many continents are there, but it's generally recognized that Africa is a continent. I think there's one theory that suggests because it is joining by land the Arabian Peninsula in Asia, and because that in itself joins onto Europe, there's one theory that says that Asia, Europe and Africa are all one continent. But the one that I go by was the one that I learned in school, which is to do with tectonic plates. So Africa is extremely large and extremely diverse. Africa, in Western media, in Western art, things like cinema, books, general perception seems to be grouped in all as one, but it is an extremely diverse and extremely large continent. this, as you can see, Europe wouldn't even fit. I mean, we're not looking at Scandinavia as well, but that central part of Europe would fit into North Africa alone. And I did a video a while back showing all of the different countries around the world that you can fit in. I think it was like Australia, USA, Brazil, like all of them just fit into the outskirts, the inland of Africa. And because, and this goes back to a different video that I did, due to the curvature of the Earth, I doubt there are any flat world believers watching this channel, due to the curvature of the world, Africa always seems to look quite small, and it's sort of an illusion. It's actually extremely large. Let's see if I can find. See this one. This page explains it. That Africa kind of looks the same size as Europe there, doesn't it? But when you put it, it's called a Mercator, a projector, I believe. When you put it on a map, look how small when you put it. This is the Eckert. Africa is, again, huge, and Europe small. This is the Hammer, but again, Europe relatively small, Africa huge. So it's just weird that when you flatten it out, it becomes much, much smaller. But yeah, this is the Mercator map. This is the one that makes it look small. And so we have probably, I want to say, 4 diverse regions. You've got North Africa. This whole part then is the Sahara Desert. We've got West Africa, East Africa, the Horn of Africa, and lastly what we call Sub-Saharan Africa. It's difficult to call it South Africa because that's obviously the name of a country. Yeah, so we tend to call this is Sahara Desert, the Sahara Desert, so we tend to then call this Sub-Sahara, so below the Sahara in Latin. Madagascar needs to be mentioned because it's part of the African tectonic plate, I believe, and it's one of the largest islands in the world. Again, doesn't look like on a map, but it is. And then also, just creeping into view here, we can see Comoros Islands, Mayotte, Zanzibar is there, but Zanzibar is still a part of Tanzania, I think. And then we got Mauritius just here, and Réunion, but Réunion is actually France. It's not a country on its own, so they would use the euro and have a French tiling code, but Mauritius is a country of its own, although English and French are the main spoken languages there. Linguistically, I haven't done a lot of homework, but my general knowledge is that North Africa is an Arabic-speaking area, starting with Egypt, which, due to its population of 100 million, more or less, is one of the largest, is the largest Arabic-speaking country in the world. Not the largest, as we found out in a quiz I did recently on the community tab. It's not the largest Muslim country in the world, though, because those don't overlap. There is a Muslim country with a larger population in the world that does not speak Arabic, and you can go onto my community tab and see the quiz if you want to find out which one it is. But yet over to Maghreb. Maghreb means the west in Arabic, and is also the word in Arabic for Morocco, but it's come into French and mainstream sort of linguistics as meaning northern Arabic-speaking Africa. In French you'd say le Maghreb, for a much larger region. This is Algeria, Tunisia and Morocco as well. So Arabic is used in these countries as well, particularly Sudan. I know a Sudanese Arabic speaker, but southern Sudan, actually one of you subscribers explained the situation there to me, is a more Christian, non-Arabic speaking part, and that's why they ended up having a breakaway from the Muslim Arabic speaking Sudan, so Sudan, South Sudan. Then you've got Western Africa, lots of ex-French colonies, and then East Africa, where there are lots of languages such as Ethiopian, which is a Semitic language, just like Arabic and Hebrew. But Somali is not, it's part of a different language group, although it kind of sounds similar to Semitic languages, due to probably the influence. Then you've got, in the south, you've got, and also they stretch a little bit over as well, but Bantu languages. Bantu languages are only found in Africa. They're not mutually intelligible, but they have the same grammar principles, and that is that you change the first part of the word in order to create meaning. So unlike French, where you would change the last letter to show feminine, or the last letter to show a tense, it tends to happen at the beginning of a word in Bantu languages. And one of the most famous Bantu languages is in this area of Kenya, Tanzania. And that's Swahili. And Swahili has a lot of vocab from Arabic due to trading routes between the Arabian Peninsula and inland. But they're also found Tanzania and Kenya, Swahili, but Bantu languages are in the southern Cape in South Africa in the form of Zulu and Xhosa as well. Madagascar is extremely different linguistically, though I don't know enough about it to talk about it. So if we look at the political map, we can see the borders of each country. You'll see some that have similar names, and this is because at some point in time, usually after colonialism has happened from the British, the French, Portuguese, Dutch, and Spanish, and even Italian, actually, because the Italians were in Libya. You'll find that borders were just sort of drawn up, sometimes quite clumsily, which has caused a lot of disputes between certain nations. But also it means that some share similar names. So you'll have Congo here, but then here is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and their capitals are right next to each other, Brazzaville and Kinshasa. Is there some other weird fact that, is this like, I can't remember the name of the lake, but I think the name of the lake is the country that it's not in, like, it's either Lake Tanzania is not in Tanzania, or Lake Kenya is not in Kenya, whatever. A couple of smaller countries in this region here, we've got Rwanda, Burundi, much smaller countries, Tanzania much larger, Kenya, Uganda, Eritrea and Djibouti. Djibouti is another small nation. Tend to have much larger nations. In general, Malawi is longer. It's not small. But then over in West Africa you tend to have much smaller ones like Gambia. Oh, the Gambia, I've also heard it called, is basically Senegal's river. It's just basically the banks of the river. It's an extremely thin country. It's very odd. And then you've got many similar named countries in this region. You've got, for example, Equatorial Guinea here, who I believe have their actual capital on an island, not on the mainland part. So that's Equatorial Guinea, and then you have Guinea, and then you have Guinea-Bissau. So you've got three called Guinea, one further away from the other two. And I can't talk about Africa without mentioning my favourite country, Chad. I don't know why, I just love the name of it. Chad. With the same flag as Romania. And I watched a short, I got recommended a short recently, and on YouTube, and it said that actually they had the flag first and Romania used to have a coat of arms in the middle which was removed. And so Chad actually sort of claim that flag. Maybe my Romanian subscribers can weigh in with some more information on that. So as I said, lots of colonialism. So Arabic seems to be the most spoken language in North Africa. And then French in this area here. I believe Equatorial Guinea is actually a Spanish colony. São Tomé and Príncipe is Portuguese. Well, I think it's swapped. I think it might be Spanish nowadays. And then you've got Angola and Mozambique, which are Portuguese speaking. So you can almost see the way down from Portugal, stopping here, and then going around, stopping there, and going on to Sri Lanka. And then South Africa has that connection with the Netherlands and Germany in some respects, so that Afrikaans, one of the many official languages of South Africa, is a sort of Creole version of Dutch, which I can understand with my basic Dutch very easily, but their verb forms don't change depending on the person. It's more like the way that Scandinavian languages like Swedish, Danish work, where you have one conjugated verb and you just put the pronoun in front. So like, I go, you go, he go, we go, rather than he goes, for example. Climate. Shock horror. Africa is hot, but I think most of us realise that. So it says January temperature, so we will find colder temperatures in northern Africa, but of course the equator is here, and the planet Earth is at its warmest all year round on the equator. So countries such as within Africa, for example, the Democratic Republic of Congo will, always have a very similar weather. But around the world, other countries like Ecuador, Colombia have very similar weather all year round and temperatures. My Colombian friends tell me it's like always warm, it just rains a little bit more or less, depending on what month it is. They don't really have seasons like we do in Europe, in Northern Europe, and in North America. Although the differences could be described as seasons, but they won't be as marked as ours. So yeah, most warm, obviously in the middle section, the furthest away you get from the sea as well, so the further inland you get, and obviously on the equator is the warmest part. In contrast, this is the July temperature, so because this is southern hemisphere, this is in July, that's their winter time, so South Africa And South Africa is very mountainous. This is probably reflective of it being higher up in altitude, as is this a mountainous region here. I believe Kilimanjaro is around here somewhere, isn't it? Or is it around here? We'll have a look. So, with that being the equator, Northern Africa is in summertime in July, and Southern Africa is in winter. So we can see, again, furthest away from the coast, this is the Sahara Desert. Obviously extremely warm, over 35 degrees in general. And it says something here, highest recorded temperature in Africa, Al-Azizia, 58 degrees Celsius. And then equally it says lowest recorded temperature in Africa. I can't read the word, it's too dark. Ifrane, minus 24 degrees Celsius. Again, the Atlas Mountains around here, so that will probably have some effect. They're quite tall. I think you could do skiing in Morocco, can you not? My Moroccan subscribers will let us know in the comments section. And then two interesting ones. You've got the annual precipitation. Obviously this is the Sahara Desert, so not much there. And then you've got Western Africa here, and there's rainforests, I believe, in this area in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and on the island of my mind's gone blank. The island of Madagascar. All I could see was the cartoon with the lion and the other animals. Yeah, and then the Horn of Africa again, very dry. And this is biomes, so this is what I was talking about, how it's so diverse. People think, Africa is just a desert. It's absolutely not. The Congo Basin here is an equatorial rainforest. And then we've got papyrus swamps in these different sections here. Oasis and Nile Valley. This is an extremely fertile area of the world due to the Nile coming into the Mediterranean. Let's see what else we've got. Mixed dry woodland and savanna. So savanna being that sort of open plain where you'll find gazelle and lions. Got semi-desert as well as desert. Temperate mountain grassland. You even have some areas of, I can't see any though. Oh yeah, right on the coast here. Mountain coniferous forest. I think up here as well. And then I'm looking for temperate rainforest. I think in Ethiopia, temperate rainforest. So extremely diverse. Talking about diversity, population. Obviously with so many different countries, and not much of a shared history, because people wouldn't have travelled from north to south prior to technology, so there wouldn't have been much communication. There would have been sea trading, like I explained, from the Arabs in the peninsula, but people wouldn't have travelled much through the Sahara or down here from the north. And so population density, so over 200 inhabitants per kilometres squared. As I talked about, Nigeria is going to be one of the most populated countries on the planet in the next 50 years. Lagos is a massive big square, but as is Cairo. Fun fact, they are building a new Cairo because Cairo is full. Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, also Ethiopia is a very large country with a very large population. I believe these tell us the exact figures. So Egypt, here it says 85.3 million, but I'm sure that it's reaching 100. But I said this is fairly up to date, so maybe I'm a little bit out of my date with my numbers. Nigeria, 174.5 million. So if you imagine 174.5 million, it's an extremely large amount. Ethiopia 93.9 million, that's actually more than Egypt. The Democratic Republic of Congo is 75.5 million. And South Africa is 48.6 million, so it drops considerably at that point. Population change, average annual population change, so over 3%. There are certain countries, and I did something, it was in a video I did, I think it was one of the ones where I did different like slides talking about the world. Between 2000 and 2010 there's been an over 3% increase in the countries of Mauritania, Mali, Chad, DR Congo, Somalia and Madagascar. There's actually been a population drop in South Africa, curiously, interestingly. But it's possibly due to the diamond mining that happened in South Africa. But wealth, the gross domestic product in dollars per capita, over 10,000 in 2013, was South Africa and Libya. Libya's actually got a very low population in comparison, but it is, I believe it's got oil. And then, what was that? Gabon. And by the looks of it, Equatorial Guinea as well. Maybe there's some reason for that. Maybe there's oil there as well, I'm not sure, I don't know. But then under 1,000, so very low in Niger, Liberia, DR Congo, Central African Republic, Somalia, and what was that? Eritrea, or... yes, Eritrea. And then, last couple of minutes of this video, we'll do a deep dive. We'll look at some capitals. So, we've got Morocco. All of Western maps have this as Western Sahara, and I know it deeply upsets my Moroccan subscribers, so this is just the way that they're printed in this country. So Morocco, Morocco in a Moroccan's eyes is this in its entirety. This, however, is not Morocco, this is Spain. If you've been on holiday to Gran Canaria or Tenerife, the Canary Islands are here. Fuerteventura, La Palma, Lanzarote. Madeira is Portugal, Funchal. And then you've got the largest country by landmass, Algeria. Much of it is a desert. But yeah, Algeria is the largest in terms of actual land mass. And then Egypt is classed as a transcontinental country because technically this section here could be described as part of the Asian plate. So this part here with Port Said is just here, and then because the Nile runs there, but here is where the canal is to get through to the Red Sea. So you go through this way, I believe through Port Said, Happy Port, I think is translated as. So this section here, the Sinai Peninsula, is actually not classed as Africa, it's actually classed as Asia. So it's deemed to be a transcontinental country. And as we spoke about earlier on, we have Sudan, Khartoum. I mean, for many years I thought Khartoum was in Egypt. At one point this would have been one larger country. Sudan has more pyramids than Egypt. So when you think pyramids, you think Egypt, but actually Sudan has many more. Khartoum is the capital. this recent separation of South Sudan, anything with dots is deemed to be claimed by one or more nations and not a solid border, so keep an eye on those symbols. And then many countries, like I said earlier on in this area. Mali, I think, have just removed French as their official language. Capital Bamako. I think it might still be the lingua franca, but they've actually removed it as their official language, and have put all the other local languages instead, I believe. Senegal is here. This is the country Gambia that I was talking about being just literally over the banks of the river. Dakar is the capital of Senegal. I guess Banjul is the capital of Gambia. Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou, one of my favourite capitals in the world. Guinea, you've got Conakry, Sierra Leone, Freetown, Liberia, Monrovia. I think Liberia was the country where people from the United States returned to Africa. I say returned, obviously, I mean for their heritage, returned, and that's why it's got a flag that's quite similar to the United States. But it's a very complicated history with Liberia, and I want to know my facts before I talk about it. I believe it's an extremely poor country. Ivory Coast, Abidjan, Ghana, Accra, very fertile, Ghana. Then we've got Togo with Lomé. No coincidence, most of these have capitals on the coast. Benin with Cotonou, I did a quiz about that recently. Porto Novo is the de facto capital, but Cotonou is the sort of administrative capital. Much larger, I believe, as well. Lagos here. This is Nigeria. Abuja. Oh yes, I think Lagos is not the capital, but it is much larger. Abuja is the capital of Nigeria, I think. And then we got Cameroon just here. Yaoundé. Chad, N'Djamena, Niger, Niamey. Libya's got Tripoli, and Cairo has got Cairo. Sorry, Cairo's got Cairo. Egypt has got Cairo. Cairo itself is just so massive, though. I don't think it's even marked. Oh yeah, I suppose that's Cairo. And then Giza, which is sort of in Cairo, but is also so large it could be a city by itself. Khartoum for Sudan, Central African Republic, Bangui, South Sudan, I don't know, Juba, is it? And then you've got Eritrea there, and Ethiopia there, Kenya, the little territory that's disputed here. And then when I turn over, we'll turn this sideways. Bit of funny noise. And then Ethiopia has got Addis Ababa. Oh yeah, it is very mountainous, isn't it, Ethiopia? Djibouti's just there out of shot. Eritrea. Asmara, is it? Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, there. And we've got Equatorial Guinea, but as I said, I don't believe the capital is there. I think it's there on the island. Bioko, is that one? I can't read it clearly. Bioko. Gabon, Libreville, then Brazzaville of Congo, and Kinshasa of the DR Congo. I think this here, yeah, is Angola. So Angola comes up to this point, then it breaks so that DR Congo has some access to the sea, and then it carries on for a little while. And I read at one point they were talking about maybe becoming a new country themselves, but it hasn't happened yet. Rwanda is here. Now it's starting to get quite dark. I can't. Kigali. I should know the capital really. And Burundi, Bujumbura, is it? Finding it difficult to read the black on the darker colour, sorry. Uganda, Kampala, Lake Victoria, this is named after Queen Victoria. And it goes across 1, 2, 3 different countries. It's so large. Kenya with Nairobi is here. Just see the edge of Somalia there. And Kenya also has a coast down here. Tanzania. Zanzibar is still, I believe, a part of Tanzania, but there is, again, very light talk of it becoming independent. Dar es Salaam is here, capital of Tanzania. And then if we keep going down, we've got Luanda, which is capital of Angola, the Portuguese-speaking country on the west coast. Zambia has Lusaka. Not to forget Malawi. What's the capital of Malawi? Longyear. Mozambique, which is the Portuguese-speaking country on the east coast, has Maputo. Zimbabwe has Harare. Botswana. Where's the capital of Botswana? Can't see. Is it down here? It's not Francistown, is it? Must be a very small population because it's not a square, it's a circle. I know that Namibia also has a very large surface area, but a relatively low population, much lower than some European countries, which are a tenth of its size. Windhoek is the capital of Namibia. So I'm guessing it's either Gaborone or Francistown for Botswana, and then that takes us down to Lesotho, Maseru, the capital I think, Swaziland with Mbobane, can't see it properly. Swaziland. Lesotho is a country which is entirely surrounded by South Africa, where we'll finish this video. Now, South Africa has a complicated capital city status. I know that Johannesburg, very often called Joburg, is, I think there are 3, is Durban 1 and is Cape Town 1 as well. I need to do a video on South Africa, I have been promising you for some time. And last but not least, the massive island of Madagascar and their capital Antananarivo, just there. Okay, thank you so much for watching everyone. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed the video. Keep your requests coming. Where would you like to see me do a deep dive of next? Don't forget to join me on Patreon for early access and an extra ramble video every month. And do click, don't do that, click instead, like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Particularly correct me if I got something wrong. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll look for you in the comments and I'll speak to you there. Take care everyone. Night night.